Okay, today I just want to do a very brief video exploring the somewhat illusory nature of what we think of as democracies or democratic republics, especially
Illusory
in the West.
nature of what we think of as
Specifically, in this case, the United Kingdom, which is arguably one of the best examples because right now, as you may have heard, they just had a series of votes, or they're in the middle of a sequence of votes to somehow avoid Brexit. What's happening now, and this is a long story. I don't want to delve into the mechanics of the European Union leave referendum, but what basically happened was British voters voted 52 to 48 in terms of percentages. I think it was over 17 million. I could be that could be incorrect. You can correct me in the comments if that's wrong, but somewhere between 17 and 19 million people voted to leave the European Union, and it forced the hand of the David Cameron and the government at the time. So he was forced to resign. Now, in a normal sort of representative democracy, even if it's not a republic, I mean, England is technically a constitutional monarchy, but in a normal in a normal country where people's votes are respected, that would have ushered in a pro-Brexit government to effectuate the separation of Britain, the UK, from the European Union. Now, excuse me, but that didn't happen. What happened was there's a series of farcical, typically British political maneuverings that resulted in Boris Johnson relinquishing control of the Brexit moment. And then Michael Gove, one of the official Leave campaigners, also being kind of shivved. So what you wound up with was a childless red Tory who opposed Brexit, Theresa May, the current prime minister, who's one of the most unpopular prime ministers in recent history, even more so than Tony Blair, if you can possibly believe that, when he left the scene. One of the most unpopular prime ministers in British history who didn't want Brexit. And she was basically given free rein to implement Brexit. And somehow she managed to survive her election campaign and repeated attempts to remove her. And now we're dealing with the end result, which is a botched process. Over 2 years later, the UK is still part of the EU, and now we're having a series of votes. The upcoming one, I think one of the next votes is going to be against a no deal. In other words, just leaving the European Union, which at this point is the optimal solution. And this is what, despite protestations to the contrary, this is what people in the UK voted for, and they knew what they were voting for beforehand. But That's not what they're going to get. Hopefully, this series of botched negotiations and attempts to salvage Brexit blow up in their face, and the people of the UK are leaving the EU without a deal. That would be the best outcome at this point. But uh, if you look at this from the perspective of someone who actually thinks Western countries are ahead of the curve in terms of reflecting the wishes of the people of the constituent parts, then you'd be shocked, because this is an example of how countries like the UK and Western European countries and Canada and the US, they're essentially Potemkin democracies or Potemkin republics where occasionally the elites will let you believe that your wishes are being respected or that you have any sort of input into how the government operates, but that's really just an illusion. It's kind of a placebo pill to dampen the legitimate anger at the ruling parties, and much like what happened with Trump, the what's referred to as the deep state, or the institutional powers within government, just decided to keep operating as is. They didn't understand that the people wanted a departure from that way of running things, and I think it just illustrates how flawed the idea of um, government is, of having a state where the people's wishes are kind of disregarded willfully. Even if you believe democracy, that's not what you're getting, and the UK is a great example of that right now.